Coming to this, there's still concentration on what's legal and what is not when it comes to the cannabis industry, and this is according to the cannabis organization University of Pretoria, COUP. Well, it says the country's cannabis sector is in limbo but continues to exist despite being made illegal from a commercial perspective, that is. Now, tomorrow, Fields of Green for All, the University of Pretoria, as well as the cannabis organization UP, will hold a webinar where current constraints in the sector will be discussed. But for more on this, we're joined by Suresh Patel, one of its speakers, to give us some insight on what's to be discussed, but also what are some of the issues there. Suresh, a very warm good morning to you, and thank you so much for your time. I know the webinar's only happening tomorrow, but it's good to have you before, just to have that exclusivity in terms of what will be discussed. Let's start with the constraints, Suresh, which are of concern. What is constraining this sector?
Hi, Tamela. Thanks for having me this morning. Yeah, I think at the moment, as you mentioned, we're currently in a limbo in terms of what's legal and what's not legal in South Africa. And in 2018, September, the Concord ruling basically ruled that cannabis for private use and growing is legal, but however, the trade of cannabis is still currently illegal and people are still currently getting arrested. And so really, I think the constraints that we're dealing with is just really, we're in a gray area at the moment. And the government recently published a cannabis master plan. And last week they held a workshop where there were over 300 participants, and it got quite crazy at times. It lasted for 5 hours. And there were quite a lot of shortcomings identified in that session. And this week they're accepting written input on that, and we feel that that cannabis master plan really ties into our webinar tomorrow, because we're speaking on entrepreneurship, and if that master plan really doesn't speak to the entire spectrum of South Africa and all the issues that we're dealing with, I think it really will be a missed opportunity. And fortunately, tomorrow we've got 5 speakers from a broad range of industries, from finance to training and education, technology, content production, and even seed supply. And, we're just really going to be speaking about their journeys, because they've been in the space for a couple of years now, each of them. Yeah. And what opportunities they see, what challenges they see as well. And also, more importantly, because they're on the ground, what input can they give based on how the master plan can be improved, and what they see possibly in the future, both short-term and long-term, for the industry.
Right. For the entrepreneurship already in the sector, they would obviously like an ideal policy and regulatory environment. What does that ideal environment look like?
Sorry, Tamela, you just got cut off in the beginning of that.
I just wanted to ask, in terms of the entrepreneurship, Suresh, already doing the work within the sector, already trading, which will, I'm sure, showcasing, the milestones they're trying to make. They would like some bit of support in terms of policy and regulation. What is an ideal policy and regulatory environment, just in terms of the cannabis sector?
I think we need a regulatory or policy system that is clearly black and white. I think where there's gray areas, it really does lead to ambiguity. And, in the cannabis industry, it actually leads to possibly run-ins with law enforcement, intentionally or unintentionally. So I think for entrepreneurs, we really just need something that's set in stone, well, not set in stone, but black and white and clear on what's allowed and what's not allowed. And I think more importantly, with, the pandemic's really affected our economy, I feel that whatever policies are going to be coming into play for entrepreneurs, it really needs to make sure that it creates as least barriers to entry as possible. Can someone in the township who's selling a matchbox of Dhaka at the taxi rank, can they still enter into the space and make a meaningful contribution and earn a living? And I feel there should be laws that plays to large corporations, but as well as the guy on the ground, really just to give our economy the boost that it needs.
All right, then, we'll leave it there. But thank you so much for those insights. As the webinar, of course, commences tomorrow, Suresh Patel, one of the speakers, of course, that can be expected in a conversation that aims to sort of enlighten and give more insight into the cannabis sector. All right, but still to come.